modern world is a place of wonders. We tend to take for granted the relative comfort, convenience, variety, and security that most of us experience routinely. But imagine if we could put a person from the 1st century into a time machine, which progresses from the year 0 to the year 2000, with brief stops in every century. During each stop, they'll be met by a typical family from that era and welcomed into their home. What would that trip be like? For the first 15 centuries or so, the trip would be pretty uneventful. Our time travelers would find a world not at all unfamiliar to them. The members of the families they visit, even the children, would be engaged in physically exhausting labor most of the time, often as slaves or serfs. Food would often be scarce and always monotonous. The same articles of clothing would be worn every day and continually patched to make them last a little longer. Children would often be barefoot. Disease, the danger of childbirth, and frequent wars would limit the number of grandparents in the community. Although many children would be born, fewer than half would survive into adulthood. The few pieces of furniture that a family owned would be sturdy, but not particularly comfortable. There would be no literacy. Books and the ability to read them are luxuries for the very rich. Most people would spend their entire lives within 12 miles of where they were born. Social roles would be determined by tradition, and each person would know their place and keep it. Our time travelers could be forgiven for assuming at this point that this is the way life has always been and always will be, stretching behind them and before them for generation after generation. So imagine their surprise when in the last few stops, strange things begin to happen. The improvement from one century to the next becomes striking and continues to accelerate as they near present day. The time travelers will encounter people who are being better clothed, fed, and housed. Books begin to appear, most likely at first a Bible written in their own language, and later pamphlets, magazines, and ultimately a personal library with thousands of volumes that can be carried in your pocket. The furnishings are becoming more numerous and more comfortable, and children and parents are no longer crowded into a single room. Though these people have no servants, they appear to have ample leisure time to read and pursue other hobbies. In the kitchen, safe and clean water is available in either hot or cold at the touch of a tap. Ovens maintain a precise temperature without constant loading and stoking. Recipes and ingredients for a wide variety of exotic meals from around the world are available in any season. Refrigerators and dishwashers appear, and people enjoy ice-cold beverages in the middle of summer. Families are getting smaller, but the children all seem to survive into adulthood. And childhood itself has been transformed. Education has replaced hard labor. At first, only for 8 years, then 12, and eventually 16 or more. The people retain their youthful appearance well into middle age. Their faces are no longer scarred by smallpox. Their hands no longer chapped and calloused and cracked from doing laundry, drawing water, or chopping wood. They have all their teeth. Images on the walls faithfully capture the likeness of each family member and seem to indicate that they've recently been swimming in the ocean or skiing in the mountains. At a certain point, the piano makes its first appearance, and at least one person in the household can play it well. Eventually, you'll find that anybody can watch the performances of the world's finest actors or listen to music from the world's greatest musicians at any time. If they prefer, they can talk face-to-face with their friends on the other side of the world. Young people marry for love, and women choose the career that suits them. They say cryptic things like, "Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life." And all this is accomplished despite the fact that there are no more slaves, serfs, or even hired servants. Our travelers would naturally be surprised and curious. What happened? Who is responsible for this sudden and unexpected progress? The people they visit are probably not able to provide them with satisfactory answers to this mystery. Those who benefit from this long march of progress would be hard-pressed to explain it. To them, it seems to happen quite naturally, and why shouldn't it? But our time traveler knows better. Their long trip through history convinces them that something dramatic has changed. If they're particularly perceptive, they will eventually notice that they have traveled from a period in which human cooperation was limited and relatively unproductive to one in which human cooperation was extensive and incredibly productive. They've traveled from a time when wealth was proportional to power exercised over others to a time when wealth is proportional to the services rendered to others. They've traveled from a time where great fortunes were confiscated from others to a time when great fortunes were earned.